Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sunny Side. I'm Sonny, and today I'm going to tell you guys why everyone, except me of course, well, everyone hates Gemini. Gemini. Okay, whatever, man. Okay, here we go. First things first, I created a Patreon account and a PayPal donation button, for everyone who can help support the channel. Every little bit helps, and I super appreciate the support. There's also a link to the Amazon.com wish list for those who prefer to help like that. Once again, and as always, if you like the video, and you like to support it in other ways, please give it a thumbs up. Maybe share it with your friends on Facebook or your homies on Twitter. And of course, if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to the channel. Alright, next. I am a professional astrologer, obviously, right? I don't know if that's obvious. No, it's YouTube, right? But I'm a professional astrologer who writes the horoscopes for the Echo newspapers here in Supernatural, British Columbia, up in Canada. And if you'd like a personal reading, or if you have questions about love and money or relationships or whatever, then simply email me at the email above, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And finally, of course, there are links to all of this in the description box below. Alright, that's the admin. Let's get down to the action. Alright, here we go. On the good side of things, right, on the good side, some signs are peaceful and loving, right? Some are graceful and some are charming. Some are nurturing and supportive. Some are fun and playful and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And yes, there are many signs that, for better or worse, have you completely fooled. Just saying. And for the most part, you fall in love with whoever you fall in love with, alright? And you support whoever you want. Alright, I get it, blah, 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 right? Whatever. But, by and large, the nature of astrological attraction is such that, regardless of how big an asshole or obviously how stupid or hateful or argumentative someone is, or maybe flat out evil, someone or even a couple of people from a particular sign maybe, you're still going to stick up for them. And you're still going to love them. And probably even do whatever idiot shit that they say, right? We see it all the time, every day. I mean, it's funny, but that's just human nature, and that's the simple emotional physics behind attraction. You don't have to believe me, really, and I really don't care, but that's the way it is. Alright, Sonny, we get it. Everyone's an asshole. So what's the deal? Alright, Sonny, we get it. Everyone's an asshole. What's the deal? Alright, here we go. Alright, get to Gemini. Alright, thank you. That's very Aries of you. Foreplay much? Whatever. Okay, look. All I'm saying is, some signs come across as easy to like and some are easy to hate. And Gemini is both. They're easy to like and at the same time they are easy to hate. They say it's a dual natured, right? But in reality, Gemini is complete energy. Right? The male, female, and spiritual energies coming together as one and getting ready for the journey of life. Now, in the story of life, that I talk about all the time in astrology here, we're born into creation with the Fool card, right, in the Tarot, and that represents Aries. Then we move on to Taurus, and in astrology, or the Empress in Tarot, which prepares the foundation for success. It's one of the cards that prepares the foundation. Then with Gemini, we venture out into our immediate surroundings and communicate with open ideas and expressions to see what's going on, But it's not as innocent as Aries or Taurus energy. We have to go through a lot of cards before we get to the Lover's card, which represents Gemini. And the Lover's card, that's a card that represents time to make a decision. Whenever the Lover's card comes up in the Tarot, it's not always the greatest card in the world. You'd think it would be, right? But it's not. It's time for a decision, or maybe a decision is made about you, right? It's just, whatever, because it's not a Tarot thing, it's Gemini. Anyways, Gemini is like a child that has open eyes. Yes, but it also has been influenced by its immediate environment, which can be good or bad. But, as usually is the case, it's a bit of both. So we go from lighthearted and adventurous to someone who's been highly influenced by their immediate environment. And that manifests as actively mischievous. You guys got that? And it's also troublemaking. And Gemini is going out into the immediate world of influences and then bringing them home to Cancer, where it's then going to build its personal foundation. You guys got that? No big deal, but there's more. People like to say Gemini is duality, okay? I'm not a fan of that word. That's to me, that's some stupid shit, okay? And there's a reason for it, and come to one of my workshops and I'll tell you to you. But for now, anyways, it's not necessarily true. Gemini is one of the most dynamic and complete energies in the entire zodiac. In the tarot, there are clearly, very clearly, 3 images, all right? And the 3 images form a triangle, all right? As I was doing some, research on this to see what I remember, what I don't, putting this video together, I saw some stuff with the Lover's card and they cut it off, right? So there's only 2. Like, you're gonna, like, bullshit, like, I don't get it, okay? I don't get what you guys don't see here. There are 3 images on the card. It's complete energy. Duh. Okay. Next. And then believe what you want. I don't really care. Anyways, Gemini is a lot more than just black or white. And while we're on it, people use the phrase jack of all trades, master of none. They say that about Geminis all the time. And for many signs, this may be true. But for Gemini, it isn't. Gemini is a master of many trades. They are that good, they are that smart, they are that fast. They are brilliant. All right? Anyways, you'd definitely be foolish to underestimate them. All right, whatever, just saying. Next! Okay, Gemini is super social. You guys should know that. They're the sign of communicating ideas and information. They are Mercury energy in a mutable air sign. And that means Mercury, all right? The planet Mercury. Right? The trickster planet that represents salesmen, liars, thieves, and and that's on the bad side, right? On the good side, Mercury represents communication, your immediate environment, siblings, thinking, not big picture stuff, that's Sagittarius, right? Or that's Jupiter's big picture stuff. Pisces, Sagittarius is big picture stuff. But, but Mercury represents thinking, like, the thinking, okay? Anyways, Mercury also rules medicine, and Gemini is responsible for your nervous system, which is why, symbolically anyways, Geminis appear nervous, or they have a lot of nervous and unsettled or restless energy. It's also the fastest planet and represents speed. And, Aries may be impulsive and first out of the gate, but Gemini is the fastest sign of the zodiac and will flat out smoke Aries and Sagittarius combined when it comes to speed. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. Mercury in a mutable air sign is inquisitive, devious, mischievous, deceptive. Sonny is not all that bad. Not all Geminis is mischievous and deceptive. Whatever, man. Like, seriously? No. Alright? No. But it is mutable energy. And that's changing energy. Geminis like dark humor. They're highly attracted to Scorpios. And it's changing ideas through subversive methods. Alright? Libra is peaceful communication, Aquarius is revolutionary ideas, and Gemini is a trickster that can definitely be, at times, they're not always bad, but they can be subversive communicators. What does that mean, Sonny? They can speak underwater? Yeah, man, they speak underwater. Alright, what else? Obviously, you got no Gemini in you. Okay, people hate Geminis. Okay, people hate Geminis not only because they're troublemaking shit disturbers, okay? They are, you can't get around that. But because they constantly manipulate the conversations, they wreak havoc on everything. Libras manipulate the conversation too, but they ain't gonna just stand there and cause shit. Libra trying to make things nice, Gemini trying to cause shit. Alright, it's really funny. Alright, whatever. So, Geminis constantly manipulate the conversations to wreak havoc on everything, or to cause lighthearted and not so lighthearted anecdotal moments. Gemini just trying to have fun, okay? Okay, anyways, you see, Gemini is by far and away the most easily bored sign of the zodiac, and they constantly cause shit to keep themselves amused. But this behavior isn't limited to Gemini, right? All of the psychic brainer signs get bored super easily, and they are all restless, and they all stir the pot simply because they're bored. Alright? It's normal, and you should be used to it, and you should be very careful around these guys when they're bored, which is all the time, right? But there's more. Gemini actively causes trouble, so be careful. Yeah, they're just having harmless fun, but harmless for one person can spin out of control very quickly for others. Alright, whatever. You guys get the picture, right? Next! Okay, so they cause trouble because of boredom, the boredom thing. But so what? If you're always bored, then you'd probably cause trouble too, right? But there's a little more to it, and it's not always their fault. It has to do with their inquisitive nature. I mean, I had a student once who was a Gemini and he was always causing problems. This is fun. He's always causing problems. Yeah, he often did it on purpose, all right? He was a shit disturber. But he also sometimes caused problems by accident. You know, Geminis are curious and they like to try things to see what happens. This kid was playing with one of the balloons in the reception area. You know, he's got toys and balloons and stuff for the kids to play with. And he pressed it against the radiator to see what would happen. Duh, you know, intelligence in progress, okay? Yeah. But poof, the balloon broke, obviously. And now he didn't tell anybody, right? He went and hit it and shoved it deeper in the radiator, so there's burning rubber everywhere. And it's not really his fault, right? But it's definitely a good example of a Gemini who caused trouble by being curious. Then he lied about it, right? Which is definitely a Gemini thing. Okay. So, Geminis are shit disturbers, right? And they're mischievous, and they get themselves into trouble just by being curious. What else? Okay, let's dispel a myth right here, right now. And I know you guys, you know, so many people have this myth, and so many astrologers said, Geminis get a very bad rap as being an unfaithful sign. But it's just not true, right? Gemini by nature is mischievous, but they aren't sneaky, and they don't go behind your back, you know? And actually, going behind your back is kind of the opposite of what Gemini is all about. You know, once again, Gemini is about sharing ideas. Gemini would rather go cause trouble with you than to do it but cause trouble for you behind your back, okay? That's just the thing. But there's more, and I'm going to get to that a little later in the video. Alright, so going behind the back is actually opposite of Gemini. And actually more to the point, and I just explained that Gemini sees the details but misses the big picture. When that means Geminis do things regardless of the consequences. They don't always see the consequences. Geminis see the small picture, the details. In astrology, it's your immediate environment. Sagittarius sees the big picture. You know, the opposite of Gemini. Sagittarius sees consequences. They see the big picture. Gemini, they're doing this because they're doing this. Gemini is a short-term kind of thing. Alright, what else? Alright, okay, back to the cheating thing. Okay, so Gemini sees the details but misses the big picture, which means Geminis do things regardless of the consequences. But one of the things they don't do, but many people think they do, is cheat on relationships. It's just not a Gemini thing. That's not trickster. That's bad, okay? Gemini's not gonna mess themselves up. They're trying to screw you up. And so cheating is gonna screw them up. And only the real idiot signs do that. Like Aries does that, you know? Like lots of cheaters, like Libra will cheat. You know, guys are like, I'm gonna kill it, I'm gonna screw up everybody, I don't care. Those are the cheaters. Gemini is not stupid, alright? Anyways, Gemini is one of the smartest signs, and they know a good thing when they see it. And they also know the value of themselves, alright? Heads up. Gemini is not a low self-esteem sign, and they're not trying to please anyone. And Gemini can be incredibly selfish and self-centered, you know, just like the rest of the signs. Okay, the Gemini is self-centered and they're selfish, just like the rest of the signs on that side of the zodiac. Split the zodiac like this and put it over there, and I'll explain it. It's like this. The signs on the left side of the zodiac are the me guys, right? Aries is I am. Taurus is I have. Gemini is I think, or I communicate, or I say, or I'm gonna screw you up. Alright? These are the me guys. The opposite side is like Libra, which is we are, or Scorpio, which is we have. You know, or Sagittarius, which is big picture thinking. You know, it's the same dynamic, but the other end of the spectrum. Alright? Okay, like whatever. Okay, I know you guys, most people stuck on duality, so they ain't gonna understand spectrum. Right? But whatever. But anyways, I'm just trying to say, when Gemini is single, sure, you know, relax, you know. Gemini, you know, they're loose in the zipper and ready for some jiggy fun. You know, who isn't? But when partnered up, they're remarkably faithful. Yes, they're going to have friends of the opposite sex, and yes, they're going to flirt, but they're also going to be faithful, you know? And while you're busy being jealous, you better keep in mind that Gemini is flirting because they want to get something from someone, you know? And Gemini has no problem playing the game. So if you're going to date a Gemini, then you better be cool with a little mercenary flirting, or you better have a fat wallet. Just saying. Because, and even that's not going to happen, because it's part of Gemini. They like to take advantage of people. You know, they're brainers. But, alright, what else? Okay, anyways, because Gemini the Gemini uses flirting as a weapon, and they're definitely smart enough to get what they want. Okay, so if you guys are wondering if you guys were wondering, and I'm sure you are, about this whole thing, I didn't write, that was big. Gemini can be a very faithful sign, just letting you know. Next, it's not that difficult really. Gemini, for a brainer sign, you know, Gemini can be quite shallow. You know, I mean, they do jump from idea to idea or project to project, and they definitely have to multitask to get anything done. I mean, I wouldn't expect a Gemini to be doing any one thing at any one time. They're always working on multiple projects. But so what? You know, it's their thing. Geminis are also a master of media, written and spoken communication. Sales. No, they're not jocks by nature, but they're also not nerds by any stretch. They're just, you know, regular boy crazy, won't shut up, you know, always bored sex freaks. There's Gemini right there. What else? Geminis like to write things down, and they tend to talk with their hands, you know? Not that should bug anybody, really. But Geminis are also the guys who like to smoke, you know, because they like to hold cigarettes in their hands. And when they quit, these are the guys who substitute junk food for smoking. So heads up. You know, if you're a Gemini trying to quit, but at the same time, you know, okay, if you're a Gemini trying to quit. But at the same time, Geminis are always on the go. So it's not like they gain weight easily. And I guess that can bug some people sometimes. What else? Okay, well, we already know Geminis are a flight risk, right? They're a relationship flight risk, and they're indecisive. And again, they're filled with nervous energy. And here's an FYI. You know, guys who know the outcome of things, all right, for better or worse, usually aren't as at peace with the whole scene as you'd expect. You know, sometimes they are, but not usually. Guys like this who know what's going to happen, they tend to be quite nervous sometimes, and Gemini is no exception. And there is a reason for this, but I'll explain it in another video. Anyways, next, you should already know. I mean, this is a video about why you guys hate Gemini, right? Not me. I hate Gemini for totally different reasons. So you should already know that the biggest reason everyone hates Gemini is not because they're indecisive or troublemakers. It's because they are total nosy gossips. Yeah, and by itself, that would be okay to an extent. Libra's a gossip, right? Aquarius gossip, Sagittarius gossips, Pisces, Leo gossips, you know, and by itself it would be okay to an extent. But when you put it all together, it's very bad. And think about it. We now have someone who doesn't care or doesn't recognize the consequence of their actions. They are bored. They like to cause trouble by nature. They are they have an intrinsic desire to cause trouble, you know? They love to talk, and they super love to spread gossip, and they just got some dirt on you, so you're in trouble, okay? And here's the real deal. They say one thing, there's one thing or saying about a Gemini which sort of sums everything up here. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, and they're not always doing it on purpose, all right? But here we go. You should never trust a Gemini. No, they're not really two-faced. I know you guys think they're two-faced, but it's like 3 symbols on the card. So you could say 3-faced, I would agree with that. 2-faced? I don't know what you're looking at, but okay. It's not Gemma-we, it's Gemini, right? They're on the left side, the me side of the axis. They're just dynamic, right? Okay, whatever. You guys can hate me for this shit, I don't care. Right? Anyways, here we go. You should never trust a Gemini. No, they're not two-faced, but they are slow to make decisions. So they might say yes now, but change their mind later. And no, they're not playing you. Gemini's not playing you. When a Gemini says yes, they mean it. But something might come along at a later time which gets them to change their mind. And no, it's not a better offer. It's just more information. But then again, they are gossipy, and they are flighty, and they do flake, and they're often super busy and on the go. Geminis don't really flake, you know? If they say they're going to do something, they tend to do it. But they don't really say they're going to do something because, they don't commit, okay? Anyways, they're just looking for more information. But, again, they are gossipy, and they're often super busy and always on the go. So if you can't keep up, Gemini's super down with hanging all the time. But if you can't keep up, then they're gone, you know? They will not have time for you. And none of this is bad until you put it all together. And then it gets really bad. The biggest reason everyone hates Gemini is because they get bored. They gossip and spread rumors about you. And they're like, and they cause shit at the best of times. And it totally sucks, but that's the action. You guys got that? The biggest reason everyone hates Gemini is because they're like indecisive shit disturbers who are always bored, nervous, and out to screw you up just because they want to have a good time and they're bored. I think that's a pretty good reason to hate a Gemini. Whatever, you know. Comments in the comments section. Alright, straight up. Geminis are amazing and they don't cheat on their partners per se, but they are total troublemakers who get bored easily. And they do gossip and their mouths do get them in a world of trouble. And that's the action on why everyone hates Gemini, guys. Thanks for dropping by, you know, and hanging out. You know, I hope you enjoyed the video. I had a lot of fun making it. And normally I'd say take everything with a grain of salt, but Geminis are smart, right? And they have very solid inner game and high self-esteem. They're not going to let a little satirical YouTube video stress them out. You know, Gemini's a lot tougher than that. They're not, you know, Gemini's just too smart for that. And just to end this, I just want to say, my mom is a Gemini, and I super love her. You know, and I love everything about her. She's got amazingly tight inner game. She's ridiculously smart, and she's a troublemaking as hell. You know, so just saying. Anyways, with that, from the sunnyside.net, I'm Sonny, wishing everyone the absolute best of a beautiful week. Go easy on Geminis, man. They just bored. And I'll see you soon.